Hello everyone. In the last video, we talked about the American radical feminist Kate Chopin, and in this video, we'll be analyzing her story, The Story of an Hour. The story of an hour, which was titled The Dream of an Hour before, begins with the way in which the death of Brentley Mallard was broken to Mrs. Mallard. Mrs. Mallard's name is Louise. She is the protagonist of the story. As Mrs. Mallard is afflicted with heart trouble, she is a heart patient. One needs to be so very careful before breaking such a shocking news, especially the death of her husband. So Josephine, who is Louise's sister, and Richards, who is Brentley Mallard's friend, had to take great trouble so as to break the news of her husband's death. Now, Josephine was doing it in a very careful manner. She was revealing it in broken sentences. She was concealing a lot. She was revealing some, so that Louise's shock of the husband's about the husband's death is lessened. So once the truth got told, once she revealed about the death of her husband, what happened to Louise? Louise wept. Louise wept in a kind of wild abandonment. She was feeling so lonely. Loneliness was taking her in. I mean, she went to her room and she was not actually, Kate Chopin describes it not as sitting in an armchair. Instead, she was sinking into the armchair. It was when you are so very tired, when you are so very exhausted, exhaustion was taking her, exhaustion was haunting her body, and it was reaching to her soul. And this was how Kate Chopin was describing it. She was sinking into the armchair, and she went to her room. After all these cries in Josephine's arms, she went to her room. And after going to her room, she was facing an open window. And this open window is very interesting. Open window is very important in the sense that it is through this open window that Kate Chopin, the Louise, sees the outside world. The outside world where she sees the top of the trees, which is filled with flowers and branches and leaves, new tender leaves. And she sees she feels the delicious breath of the rain in the air. She sees the peddler crying his wares out. She listens to the twittering of sparrows. She sees the patches of blue sky peeping through the clouds. So what happens is this kind of season which is being described in the story is of course spring season. Spring season, what does spring season do? Spring season is the season of life. It gives you life. It gives you birth. It gives you the flowers blossom. The trees are full of leaves and flowers. Sparrows, all the animals, the people, everyone. It is a beginning of a new life, spring season. So in that particular room, though she was facing the open chair, she sat there motionless. She was sobbing. She was sobbing and sobbing and sobbing, like you see when a child cries and cries and cries and go to sleep. He or she, the child sobs in her dream. The child sobs in the sleep. It was like that. She was sobbing. A kind of a sob was shaking her. And there was a sort of dull stare in her eyes. There was the whole of the thought process got suspended from her. She was not able to think. She was not able to act. She was not able to do anything. She was so very traumatized, like any woman who would be traumatized by the death of her husband. And there was a vacant stare, a look of terror in her eyes. And at that moment, with that look of terror, she was feeling that something was creeping out of the sky, through the air, through the sounds, through the scent, through the color which was filling the air. Something was creeping into the room, creeping in to her, into her body, into her soul. Something was there. A sort of a feeling was coming into her. It was overcoming her, and she could not help it. She was becoming completely powerless over over that feeling. She cannot help it. The feeling was coming. She was trying to beat it out, but she couldn't. Powerlessness was taking her, and at last she unknowingly, without her knowledge, what happens is she was uttering three words, free, free, free. With that moment, once she uttered those words, freedom, the vacant look which was there, that look of terror which was there in her eyes, vanished forever. And then the eyes became keen and bright. The pulses began to beat fast. The blood which was coursing along her body warmed, and she began to get relaxed. Every inch of her body was relaxing. She was uttering, with the utterance of these three words, free, free, free. That was a joy which was monstrous. Joy which was monstrous in the sense that for a woman in a patriarchal society, till now we were thinking of her as a very common woman who was very much traumatized, haunted by the death of her husband, who was so very abandoned, so feeling so very lonely by the death of her husband. All of a sudden had a very different sort of a feeling, where she was feeling completely free. There was a joy in her, but the joy was monstrous, because a woman to feel free after the death of a husband is of course monstrous. You have Virginia Woolf saying that either a woman is either an angel or a harlot. So either an angel or a witch. To be an angel, you need to be very sad. You need to be very feeling abandoned after the death of your husband. But then she was feeling free, so she was like a harlot, she was like a witch, she was like a monster. So this was the feeling that was overcoming her. I hope you are able to understand me. So we'll talk about the rest of the story in the next video. Thank you all.